Hi, I'm Dan Peña, also known as the $50 billion man. I'm honored and humbled to be here at the United States Naval Academy to speak to the entrepreneurs of the Academy. The world is their oyster upon graduation, and I will show them how to take the oysters and run for the rest of their lives. Let's get started. To get into a school like this, you have to do something special. You have to be recommended, yada. You know all the drill, right? And then you got to get out. And you just heard Tom, one of my mentees, who candidly told you about his background here. Now, I don't think he was the worst midshipman to ever come through this school, but he's probably in the top 2% of the worst. But they still call him Sir. And even though I never met Senator McCain, he graduated 5th from the bottom, if my memory serves me correctly, and he turned out well. With all the computers and all the artificial intelligence, there's still no algorithm for experience. There's no code that you can write for 50 years of experience. There's no code that you can write for creating tens of billions of dollars. There's no code that you can write for having met 5 presidents, 5 secretaries of state. There's no algorithm. And as they said at Oxford when I spoke my first university about 2.5 years ago, like in the front row here, some young man said that somebody that he was following had read 700 books. I didn't know there were 700 books on my subject matter. But the guy 2 seats down said, who would you rather have? Somebody that read 700 books or somebody that's done 700 deals? Bought and sold 700 companies. Who would you rather have advising you? This is the Entrepreneur Club, right? I didn't realize that you had time to be entrepreneurs and attend the Naval Academy. I didn't realize that people actually have businesses while they attend the Naval Academy. I know other college students do, but I just thought that you didn't have enough free time. Because you don't have any free time, do you? That's right, okay, but some of you have figured out a way to either make money on the internet or whatever it is. So we need somebody to push the buttons. Freedom's not free. As we speak, there's people dying all over the world. I mean, even in Paris. And no more fitting theme than freedom's not free. And I'm going to teach you how to use both your education, your discipline, your grit, your tenacity, and all the things they teach you to go out, if you choose, and how to make and create millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, tens of billions. I've been doing this 25 years as a coach. 25 years. I used to be a regular guy, made a lot of money, but money's not everything, but it's the only thing anybody keeps track of. I'm going to say it again. Money's not everything, but it's the only thing everybody keeps track of. Why is that? And if you don't think money can buy happiness, you don't know where the hell to shop. I'm going to say that again. If you don't think money can buy happiness, it's because you don't know where to shop. The quantum leap is a move you're prepared to make. You just haven't done it yet. Some of you, the quantum leap in your life is being here. Now, when we talk about it, I was a class act fuck-up. I made Tom, who just got up here and bragged about his experience at this fine institution, look like an altar boy compared to what I was like. Yet I'm still here. Because again, there is no algorithm for experience. I'm here because I've created tens of billions of dollars with people just like yourselves. I was telling the group outside earlier that I had the privilege of knowing Pete Conran, the 3rd guy to walk on the moon. I thought he was a graduate here. He was a naval officer, captain, 3rd guy to walk on the moon. I just thought he had to go to the Naval Academy when I was doing my research for this talk. No, he was an ROTC naval officer, but he's still the 3rd guy to walk on the moon. And when he came to me in the early 90s, when I first started coaching, he was having trouble with his identity. He had a job at Boeing because he was an astronaut. He walked on the moon. But he wasn't happy, he wasn't making any money, he wasn't able to support his family, etc., etc., etc. He wasn't able to connect the dots after walking on the moon. Now, We have at least one young man in here who wants to be an astronaut. I talked to him earlier. You walk on the moon, walk on Mars now. Then what? What do you do then? Your guess is as good as mine. But the fact is that for those of you that will leave the military, and I'm not telling you to cut your commitment short, believe me, to leave the military, you're going to have an opportunity like the world has never seen. You're already taught here at the Naval Academy to be all you can be. That's not news. Normally I have to spend 20 minutes when I'm talking to the civilian universities because they don't really understand what that concept is. You already understand maximizing your potential. So we're just going to show the slide and I'm not going to talk about it. But absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Just because you've never heard a crazy old man like me up here that's created tens of billions of dollars with meatheads just like you doesn't mean it's not possible or it hasn't happened. I'm here because I have. Tom, a graduate of this fine institution, has told you I'm the real deal. Well, maybe I fooled him. After all, he graduated near the bottom of his class. How fucking smart can he be? Okay? Maybe I trick-fucked him, as they say. You know? That's not the case. That's not the case. The fact is that the system, the way it's set up, is made for people that take action. Now, most of what you've heard about life and business is like this pile of shit here. Just that crap. There's been thousands of books written about finance. There's been thousands of books written about personal development. And I'm going to talk about personal development a little later on when we need a laugh. Okay? And the only people that make money on those books, the only people that put asses in seminar seats that make money are the people that write the books and give the seminars. All mine are free. Well, Dan, you're a smart guy. I know you might be having early on dementia, because I'm 73. Why is it you give everything for free? Why is everything on my website free? Absolutely free. 100%. Because I want to take the last excuse away from you meatheads. I didn't know how to do it. I couldn't do it. I can't afford it. Whatever the excuse you use. Right, Murph? By the way, the inventor of Murphy's Law is sitting in the back room. Another one of my mentees. But it's free. It's absolutely free. Now, Jeff is worth about $150 billion, the founder of Amazon. This is what he looked like almost 20 years ago. 20 years ago, they laughed at him. 20 years ago, he wasn't worth $20,000, let alone $150 billion. Now he's got a company, roughly speaking, around $1 trillion. A little less, maybe $150 billion less because of the sell-off in the market, etc. But they laughed at him. He had an idea. He had a dream. Like him, I had a dream about 35 years ago. I'm the first person on the planet that took an option for something he did not own, public, on a major stock exchange. I'm going to say, okay, I don't own that book, right? I paid him $1. I want an option. I'll give you $5 for that book a year from now. I took an option. I took that book, not owning it, and I sold it on the New York Stock Exchange for $150 million. That's what I did. And that was the beginning of my quantum leap. But my real quantum leap was June the 1st, 1967. And the infinite wisdom of the Congress of the United States of America, like you young naval cadets, when you become an officer, Congress is going to say you're an officer and a gentleman. Now, Tom was not such a great gentleman, but he was an officer. I was commissioned a second lieutenant in the United States Army. It's the first and only high-performance thing I had ever done in my young life. I was 21 years old. But I took it seriously. I didn't like the idea of being called a gentleman when I was chasing skirts. This is before AIDS, kids. This is pre-AIDS, when sex was free. Okay? I'm not going to talk about sex here, to guys and gals that are stuck on a campus for 4 years and don't have much outlet. But the point is, I had a dream just like Jeff did. I took an option public, and forevermore, I'm known for that. Not owning it and legally selling it to the public at large. Kids are not programmed for success, you guys are. Now, there are some exceptions. This is my new grandson. If this little shit's not successful, I'll choke him. He's about 6, how old is he now? 6 months? Yeah, 6 months old. And he is a future legend. He can't be, he's going to be programmed, but I hope I don't do, because our sons, our daughter, we built a tennis court, made them play tennis. They hate tennis today. We did all the wrong things. We pushed them over the brink. The only thing that we built a golf course. They like playing golf. But the little kid is programmed like probably no other kid alive. He's not just because he has my blood running through him, not just because his father is more or less a mini-me, but most of us weren't raised that way. Now, I had the privilege of knowing these men, or meeting them, not knowing them. That's an overstatement. Yes, I met John Kennedy. Yes, I met Richard Nixon. Yes, I met George Bush Sr. Yes, I met Bill Clinton. And yes, full disclosure, I knew the president, your commander-in-chief in another life. I haven't talked to him in 25 years. Now, 3 of those 5 men were programmed for success. They were rich. Their families were rich. Their families were rich. They would have had to really screw up to not be successful. That's not the kind of privilege most of you in this audience, especially the midshipmen and myself, have. These 5 secretaries of state that I've met, Kissinger, Schultz, Vance, Warren Christopher, Hillary Clinton, 3 of those came out of rich families. They were programmed for success. The prime ministers, the secretary general of NATO, governors, senators, ambassadors, generals, and admirals that I've had the privilege of knowing, some were programmed for success, but most weren't. For those of you that are going to school here, you have such an advantage, you can't imagine. You can't imagine. I know because I know what you can turn into. I know what being an officer and a gentleman, I don't know what they say about the ladies that are here. It's an officer, must be an officer and a lady. I'm not sure the vernacular. But I know what it means. The only high performance thing I ever did was be commissioned as a second lieutenant in June of 1967. 51 years ago. And I took the world apart, piece by piece. And then I got into coaching and mentoring, and I've created tens of thousands of you that have created billions of dollars. It's a very simple system, and again, everything I'm going to say to you tonight is free on my website. Because this is where I come from. And that's my best imitation of a cholo drug dealer in East LA where I come from. That little yard behind that fence between me and the painted wall was my house. 800 square feet. They ripped it down because it was a crack den. The city of LA ripped it down. When I took that picture 25 years ago, there was 2 drive-by shootings 5 or 6 blocks away. And my camera crew dove under the limo. This is where I come from. And hear me, I'm getting the investiture by the Queen. So from the barrio to getting blessed by the Queen. Oh, that slide slipped. To going to the North and the South Pole. My wife and I are bipolar. We've been married at both poles. Now, I'm not going to talk about global warming right now, even though the study just was produced, which is shit in my opinion. There's 11 groups that have been to both North and South Pole since the beginning of time. 11. 10 are dead. Sally and I are the 11th. stood right on the magnetic pole both times with scientific groups, and yet everybody's flapping their lips about global warming. It's climate change. And this is the man that took an option on something he didn't own, $820, and turned it into $450 million. Using the same system I'm going to show you in a few slides from now. That's 55 million%. Michael Dell of Dell Computer told me 30 years ago, if you had been in our business, Dan, you would have been the first trillionaire on the planet. You've never met, heard of, read about anybody that's grown anything at 55 million% in your miserable lifetimes. And now, more importantly, which I'm more proud of, is I've taken people like, well, no, maybe not you, but I've taken people like you and I've made them wealthy. Money's not everything, young man, but it's the only thing anybody talks about or keeps track of. Now, if you had come from wealthy families, most of you didn't. But if you had, you probably wouldn't be going to school here. You'd be going to Harvard, Princeton, Yale, Oxford. I'm the 700 deal guy. No algorithm. Oh, that slide. I made that slide myself, as you can tell. Jesus Christ, Penny. Okay, next. Okay. And there I am. It's hard to believe. I was 21 years old. My kids don't believe that's me. I can tell by looking at your faces. You don't believe that's me either. How many 21-year-olds are in the audience? 20. 19. I got shoes older than you, kid. Okay. But I came out of the military at a different time. Now they say thank you for your service, right? They spit on me. Spit on me. I had to fight my way to class with a baseball bat. Because I came out of an unpopular war. No war is good, but I came out of an unpopular era, the Vietnam era. Go ahead. Our commander-in-chief, I already talked about, full disclosure, I know him. I had the privilege a few weeks ago to address a group of SEALs, Green Berets, fighter pilots, special ops in New York City. They're transitioning out of the military. I'm going to say they're lost, but they're lost. Because when you spend 10, 20 years in the military, you become institutionalized. You don't think other than the way you were trained. And that's the good news while you're in the military. But when you get out of the military, it's not a good news. It's the bad news. And so I was there to try to help them transition, get their minds thinking differently. Association is power. You know that. From 300. We don't want you to end up like the 300, though. Okay? All those guys died. Okay? Now, I'm not here to teach you how to be a military leader. The school's taking care of that, for those of you that are going to this fine institution. But I can't emphasize enough what an advantage you're going to have when you get out there if you choose to leave the military in the civilian world. I can't begin to tell you the advantage that I had 50 years ago when I got out. Because they teach you how to think to get an objective done. They teach you how to, not metaphorically pull the trigger, but take action. And most civilian schools don't teach shit. They think taking action is wiping their butt in the morning when they go potty. You have a tremendous advantage. Tremendous. And about your school, I'm not going to give you a history lesson, although I found it interesting, next slide, that you came from the Naval Asylum, Philadelphia Naval Asylum. That's where the school started. Now, being an old Army officer, I got a lot of stories about Navy. But because my dad served in the Navy during the Second World War, I'm not going to say any of them. But it was interesting when I was looking up the history, and that they discontinued the Naval Academy for a period of time, for 10 years or so. And and again, I got some more other Army stories that they should have stayed discontinued, but I'm not going to go through any of those stories, okay? Because if I were up here talking about the West Point, I'm sure you Navy guys would have just as many stories to enlighten me. They teach you to sweat more in training so you bleed less in combat. That used to be a popular saying when I was going through my military training. Now, just to show you how times have changed, when I was going through Ranger training in 66-ish, 67, long time ago, they hit people. They used to, when you do escape and evasion training, and if you were unfortunate enough to be caught, they staked you out on an anthill, poured honey over you for 2 or 3 days, and let ants eat you. They hung you from trees and pushed you out of the tree with a rope around your wrist or your ankle, so you dislocate your shoulder or your leg. They put battery wires to your testicles to get your attention. This was the fucking training. The military's moved on. I'm not so sure it's moved on in the right way, but it's moved on. Now I'm told I can't even yell at anybody, let alone choke them. And that certainly wasn't the way when I was going through my training, these many 50 plus years ago. But the world has become sophisticated. Political correctness reigns. And I'm here to tell you, in my humble opinion, and there's nothing humble about me, that political correctness is a manifestation of lack of self-esteem. Because you care about what people say about you. You care about what people think about you. And I don't. And either does Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Elon Musk, Henry Ford the First, and I can go down the list. Okay. For full disclosure, I was one of the first endorsers of our Commander-in-Chief before we became president. I told you about we're privileged already. I told you that I've trained currently active duty Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and students. Go ahead. And the training course is called Boots to Suits. The transition from military to civilian life. And it's a quantum leap, kids, for those of you that are going here. You're going to have an advantage because you're being taught how to take action. And virtually no other institution on the planet other than the military academies teaches you that. Normally when I go to a school, I say, okay kids, how many classes have you had in buying a business? No hands go up. How many classes have you had in selling the business? No hands go up. Then I say, how many classes have you had in leadership? And except for the academies, no hands go up. Well, what the hell are you learning here? The leadership you got covered. Again, I should do a little Army-Navy joke, but I'm not. Here, the leadership you got covered. It's the buying and selling businesses that you don't have covered. And it's all free on my website. Now, the right-hand side is my father's generation. The left-hand side, it's the current generation. The world has changed. What the fuck happened? I mean, God almighty. What happened? Back in the day, I wasn't sure I was going to get a laugh out of the Naval Academy kids, but they haven't beat your sense of humor out of it yet. Good. Okay. Now, I was born at the end of World War II at a naval base in Jacksonville, Florida, because my dad was in the Naval Air Force. If my dad was sitting here right now, he'd be 100 if he was still alive. He'd say, Dan, they called it an Air Force, but it wasn't much of an Air Force, 1942 to 1945. So I'm not going to argue with that. And this is what Jacksonville looked like. Some people say it still looks like that. But I was born at the naval base, right there at the end of World War II. We know that. And these, from that school that I went to, these are my classmates. I had a kid ask me not too long ago, why are they all wearing orange, Mr. Peña? And God is my witness. I wanted to smack the kid's teeth out. But these were my classmates. I should be up there. And again, full disclosure, I've been arrested 5 times. I've been in jail. I've done some ugly stuff. I used to fancy myself a tough kid. By today's standards, I am still a tough guy at 73. But back in those days, I did a lot of wrong things. Not dissimilar to Tom, your former or current, what is it, former?
Graduate.
Whatever, you know what I'm talking about. Now, you have not been taught to do this. Now, some of you may have been taught to snort a line of coke. I'm hoping none of the naval kids, but I'm smarter than that, so I'm not that naive, depending on where you came from. But because you've been taught money is dirty. I don't take a show of hands anymore, but I'm sure some of your families thought money is dirty. You've been taught money's not important. No. Okay. Fighter pilot here's quick on the trigger. Okay. Other values more important. So how in God's name are you accumulating any wealth? Again, I'm not suggesting that you cut your commitments for the kids that are part of the Naval Academy system, but the education here, I believe, is free. We couldn't get a coffee up until, well, that's a whole other story, okay. Then we had to borrow a card from one of the seniors. Thank you. But you've been taught. Money's not good. Some of you, all of you, have dreams. Some of you will fulfill your wildest expectation. But what's standing in your way? Relatives, friends, guilt, pessimists, society, fear. Fear is false expectations appearing real. Now for the cadets, the naval kids, by the time you get to your 4th year, the things that you were worried about in your 1st year are passé. Same with creating generational wealth. There was a slide of a big pile of crap 5 or 6 slides ago, and most of what you've learned to date about creating generational wealth, being an entrepreneur, starting a business is crap. I heard somebody say earlier about a business plan. Business plans are passé. They're not needed. I'll explain to you later why they're not needed. Because a business plan is just a wild-ass guess. I've never seen, in 50 years of doing this, a business plan fail on paper. I'm going to say that, these are Navy guys, so I'm going to say it again. I've never seen a business plan fail on paper. Why? Because you put the most optimistic shit in there, right? So who's going to believe a business plan? Only morons. That's why they're not needed. What differentiated me from the kids in the barrio? Now, for those of you that come from a ghetto background, or a barrio like I did, my mother gave me dancing lessons. Ballroom dancing lessons. My mother gave me golf lessons, free at the park. My mother gave me tennis lessons, free at the park. She allowed me to believe in Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, etc., until some people say until I was 23, but that's not true. But I was certainly 10 years old. No Spanish in my household, because my mother didn't want me to have English with an accent. And last but not least, she raised me according to a book by Dr. Benjamin Spock on raising kids, which is behind the Bible, the second most purchased book in the history of the world. 55 million copies of that book have been sold in 25 different languages. My mother came across illegally the Rio Grande River in 1924. And I'm for building the wall. I'm going to say it again slow. Again, this is the naval audience. My mother came across the Rio Grande River as an illegal alien in 1924, and I'm for building the wall. So my mother followed these precepts to keep me. I'm first generation Mexican, and I've created more wealth than the entire personal development industry since Moses. I've created more wealth than the entire financial coaching industry since fucking Christ. Yet many of you in this room and many people you know listen to podcasts, read books, right? Other people's shit. Why? Because you don't know any different. You may not decide to buy off. You may kill this message because it's the messenger you don't like. You know, I don't really care. The point is, most of the information that's put out there is crap. And it's put out by people that have never made a goddamn dime. I've made more money than the entire industry since the beginning of mankind, cumulatively. One old, tired Army officer that didn't have the benefit of a great education like you got here at the Naval Academy. That came from the barrio, been arrested several times, did some ugly stuff. But because my dad was in the Navy, he looks more like a movie star than a naval aviator, but anyway, that was his favorite picture, so I'm showing it this one. I only recently found out from my older cousins that his two older brothers were also in the Navy, and they all three volunteered after Pearl Harbor, as many Americans did back in those days, and they all went to the Pacific. And brothers, now you can't go to the same theater because they're worried about them all getting killed at once. Well, all three, one went to destroyers, one went to aircraft carrier, and my dad went to the Naval Air Corps. But they all came back, but only recently did I find out that my dad did this special stuff with a team for Admiral Nimitz. Class of 1905, for those of you that are history buffs. I didn't realize when you're Admiral of the Fleet, you're Admiral for life. Now, I don't think there's, well, maybe some of you, or one of you will be an Admiral of the Fleet. They don't have Admiral of the Fleets anymore. But just so you know, you'll be an Admiral for life. And so I was raised different. Now, this is not much of an exaggeration of what my father looked like. My father had a 56-inch chest, 28-inch waist, 18-inch arms, and he never lifted a weight. He was a gymnast. He was on the alternate for the 1936 Olympics on the pommel horse and rings. When I was 13 or 14 years old, my father must have read a magazine article about bonding. So I had 3 bonding experiences with my dad when I was 13 or 14. My dad never told me he loved me, and he died in 91. My father didn't have a father. His father died before he was born. So we go to a junior high school father-son picnic. I get chills just thinking about it still, all these many decades later. And fathers are up there doing chin-ups and on the rings and all this business. And my father says, "Stand here, Danny." And when my father said, "Stand there," short of a fucking tsunami, I didn't move. He goes over in the sand underneath the rings, and he goes in there, and he goes into an iron cross like this. He's 41 years old. He goes into a reverse iron cross with his feet pointing to the sky, and then he does a perfect dismount. All the other fathers melted into they just left the apparatus. That was just one bonding incident with my father. We had 2 more, but I'm not going to share them with you. But they were equally as embarrassing. I'm still embarrassed today at 73 that happened 60 years ago. But my father, you're seen and not heard. When I played American football, to the extent that you could call it playing American football. My father, you know how Friday nights you come out of the locker room, all the guys are going to screw around, right? My dad was waiting at the locker door to grab me by the hand, walk me to the car, take me home. High school senior. Just imagine what the other kids thought. But Dad looked like that, and he carried a gun. So even though they might have thought my dad was a tyrant, nobody. My wife and I went to a 2-day funeral last year. I didn't know they had 2-day funerals, but this bitch had a 2-day funeral. And afterwards, we go to lunch, and two of my guys that I've known since I'm 10 and 11 years old, respectively, are talking, still to this day, they're my age, about my dad. And Walt, he said, and he carried a gun into his 70s. Because retired police, my dad was also in the CIA, and if you Google him, my father either killed between 13 and 23 people for the CIA, assassinated. He was linked to the assassination of John Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, Martin Luther King, fat Martin Luther King, thank you. Yes, and Che Guevara. They brought my dad out of retirement to head up the Sirhan investigation, which Sirhan allegedly shot Robert Kennedy. So they bring a spy spook out of retirement to cover it up, which is the story. To this day, till the day he died, my wife and I would ask him, he just giggled and laughed. He would neither confirm nor deny any involvement with any of those people. I heard about King. I heard about Jack Kennedy. I was in charge of the Robert Kennedy, and I was in Colombia when Che Guevara got killed. That was his story. To the day they buried him. Now, this is a Line E6 that recruited me into the Army. The operative word is line. We went into the buddy plan. In those days, 3 guys could go in the same duty station. They would be from boot camp till they got out of the military in the same place. That was the last time I ever saw those 2 guys with that picture taken. We all went to different duty stations. I hope they don't have a buddy plan anymore. Because if they do it, they're lying to you. You're not going to go to where your buddies are. Those 2 guys. And look at, we believe that lying piece of shit. I mean, it's unbelievable. Okay. This is a letter I wrote, second day I'm in the Army, June 23rd, 1966. You can go on. And it basically said that they treat me all right. Because when I went in the military, I thought it was a country club because it was harder living at home than it was being in the Army. But I only explain 2 things to you. I have 102 things like that. 102. And there I was, 21 years old, and I went to OCS, Officer Candidate School, for 6 months in those days, at Fort Benning, Georgia, Benning School for Boys. And I'm 20 there, I don't think I was 21 yet. I look much thinner. And do they still have Dear John letters when you go off deployed and you get a letter from your girlfriend that she left you? Dear John letters? Well, I told my girlfriend, the love of my life, don't wait for me, I'm going to Vietnam, I may not come back. She didn't wait. She married a goddamn guy from the Air Force Academy who was an astronaut and left me flat on my ass. And I thought, I'm a good-looking guy, she can't leave me. I still remember reading the goddamn letter. This only happens in the movies. Can't happen to me. Now, how did I become an entrepreneur? Well, I'm a young second lieutenant, and I go into the old club. I know they don't have officers clubs anymore, but in those days they did. I go into the old club, and everybody's drinking. And I said, well, why are we all drinking? He says, Dave inherited $1,400,000. I had never heard that before. I didn't know how many zeros was in a million. I'm not lying. So I said, could you write $1,400,000 on a napkin for me? He did. I said, well, let's drink up, right? So we drank. A few weeks later, I get an award. And I'm getting the award there. That's 2-star General Woodrow Vaughn, who retired a 3-star general, West Point guy. And he said, I got an award. I came up with an idea to save the Army $2 million. By accident I came up with it. They gave me a $50 war bond. This is how I'm an entrepreneur today. $50 war bond. If I kept it 30 years, it was $50. It was worth $6.75 when they gave it to me. I saved them $2 million. They gave me $6.75. Okay, he's giving me the award. Okay. Roy Atterbury, who I reported to directly, was a one-star general, another West Point kid. So we're in the old club. General Atterbury's on this side of me, General Vaughn's on this side of me, and I'm a first lieutenant by this time. And they said, Danny, you ought to buy us drinks. Why is that? Well, first of all, when a two-star general tells you you're a first lieutenant, you just start buying. You don't ask, right? And so I said, but why is that? And I said, you won that award. And I said, well, it's only worth $6.75, General. And then he said the magic words, Danny, a young boy like you in the civilian world would be rich. And a light bulb went off in my head. I can still remember the moment. A light bulb. I was in to be a regular Army officer. I liked the military. I loved it. I loved the discipline. I loved that you could beat the shit out of people. I loved the trigger time. There was nothing about the Army I hated. I only loved it. But when that fucking light bulb went off over my head, money, civilian life, I was out of the Army in 6 months. 6 months and 1 week later, I'm out. Pissed off a lot of people. From a 5%er, young hard charger, you probably got some of the guys, young hard chargers, young junior officers here at the Naval Academy, so I'm out. In 6 months and 1 week. And the world has been my oyster ever since. All of you are prisoners or free by, God damn, Dan. I mean, you make a slide like a drunken sailor. Jesus. I made this slide too, as you can tell. I should have just left the damn presentation the way it was, not made any slides. Okay, we're free by our own choices. Our own choices. And my choice was to use my military experience, my military background, my leadership skills, etc., to go out and be an entrepreneur. I've turned you wouldn't need to turn your wounds into wisdom. Right now, for the young kids that are part of the academy, you don't have many wounds yet. Yet is the operative word. You'll get them, and you'll obtain scar tissue. Now, this is my natural personality. I'm living about 20,000 years too late. That's when I should have lived. Good-looking girl go by, just club her partner in the face, cave in his head, and take her. You got a business I like, club you to death, take it. That's my natural personality. I'm an alpha male, if you haven't already figured it out. But you don't have to be an alpha male to be a high-performance person. 98% of the business leaders in the world are not alpha males. Only 2% are. Okay? Warren Buffett, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, and Mark Zuckerberg have one thing in common. They're introverts. Introverts. The system that we're going to learn today has produced teenage multimillionaires. We had dinner with, he's not a teenager anymore, he's 21 now. Last night, his father is the West Point colonel I alluded to the largest deal in recorded history, $500 billion. A mentee, Klaus Kleinfeld. He came to me when he was 17 years old. Yes, that's his jet. He's flying around now. He's 21. Again, this isn't meant for the Naval Academy kids, but for the rest of you meatheads, what the fuck have you been doing the last few years? 17 years old! Jesus Christ! Are you kidding me? Money's not everything, kids. And I'll call you kids because I'm either not old enough to be your father or grandfather. You want to save the world? Some of you do. I can just tell there's tree huggers in the audience. Go make $500 billion, then save the world. When we start talking about naval graduates here, when I look on your website, they don't list that they got rich in business. They listed that he was called the Admiral when he played basketball here. And you know who I'm talking about. They don't list that he's almost a billionaire from commercial real estate because he was a quarterback here. The website neglects to say that. They just say there's Roger Staubach and Robinson and there's Ross Perot. They list as a politician. He was one of the first multi-billionaires. Class of 54 or 57, if I remember correctly. This is the $500 billion deal, now in the desert. Thank you. This is the CEO of it, Klaus Kleinfeld, who I've trained for the last 20 plus years. The traits of the high performance people that you all want to be like: focus, commitment, tenacity, grit, massive goals, and never give up. Now, you will never achieve, if you want to be a millionaire, you'll never achieve $1.1 million. You will never outperform your highest expectation of yourself. You will never outperform the highest expectation of yourself. For those that want to be admirals in the group, 4-star admirals. Not 1-star. I'm not demeaning a 1-star admiral or a 2-star admiral, but there's upper and lower class. I'm not going to go through all that. You guys understand that better, or you should understand it better than I. Nimitz skipped 3 grades to be a 5-star admiral. He skipped, I believe, being a 03, and he skipped being a 1 and a 2-star admiral. He went straight to 3 stars. So if you want to be an admiral, then you want to be a 4-star admiral. Regrets what the high performers have not. They have not lived their life. I would have done this. I should have done this. I could have done this. Self-esteem is the foundation of excellence. It's one of the things they teach at this, not just this academy, but the Military Academy, Air Force Academy, and the Coast Guard Academy. They teach you how to get out of your comfort zone. For the plebes in the room, this is probably the first time you've been away from home. I was glad to get away from home, but anyway, that's a whole other story. It's the first time, okay? You may be homesick. I didn't believe in being homesick. I got gangrene in my hand when I was going to boot camp. And one of the last things my dad said, you never go on sick leave. Only wusses go on sick leave. I got gangrene. I almost lost my left hand, but I didn't go on sick call, whatever it's called. The officer of the day, which was a young second lieutenant, and I was curled up in my bunk, and he says, what's wrong with Peña? And my hand's all puffed up and green like this. It's all right, Lieutenant. It's all right. I was an enlisted man first. It's all right. They took me off and they lanced, and I almost lost my hand. But my dad said, only wusses go on sick leave. Now, people call in for work because they got diarrhea. People call in sick for work that have a migraine. What the fuck has happened to us? Now, the way I continue to stretch myself at my old and tender age is I do crazy shit. Other than tripping over this fucking chair, yeah, I do crazy shit. Still, this is in 2014. This was just last year. I jumped out of the stratosphere in Las Vegas, 855 feet. Now, I have artificial knees, artificial hip, artificial shoulders. I have no right long head bicep from bummed up from various things that have happened to me. So I should not be jumping out of an 855-foot tower that I've got to land like this. So my lovely wife says, Dan, why don't you go watch the people land? She's thinking if I see them land, then I won't jump. No, I don't want to focus on anything negative, no negative shit. So I go up to the top and I jump. Well, I didn't land. On YouTube, we cut out the part of me falling on my head and rolling into the cement. We cut that shit out, so it looks like it landed like this. But I didn't. I landed into the cement, and because my knees couldn't take the pressure, because I had full knee transplants a couple years ago, both knees. But I continue to do stuff like this to continue to push myself outside my comfort zone. And if I'm pushing myself outside my comfort zone in my 70s, it could be easy. Now, I'm not suggesting any of you jump off buildings. I'm not suggesting any of those things. But what I'm suggesting is the older you get, kids, and this is directed to the students here, the harder it is to push yourself outside your comfort zone. Because then you got a family, you got kids, you got a mortgage, you got your mother and father you're going to take care of. You got a half-breed mongoloid idiot for a sister. Well, life catches up with you. But success leaves clues. If a kid from the barrio, whose mother came across as an illegal alien, who's been arrested many times, a lot of trouble, whose life was changed the day he became an officer and a gentleman, as a second lieutenant 50 years ago, can do the things I've done, 5 presidents, 5 secretaries of state. The world is your oyster. Nothing's impossible. You're going to do fine as a pilot. I can tell you, you've got real hand-eye coordination there. Good. Okay? Because you, again, directed at the Naval Academy kids, have the background that is required to be a high-performance person. Leadership, what is it? Past, present, and future. It's me getting you to do what I want you to do when I want you to do it. It's me getting you to do what I want you to do when I want you to do it, not when you decide to do it. That's leadership. And the kids at the academy are learning that. By the time you get ready to go out next May, June, you will know a lot more than the first, second, and third year kids. Boots to suits. You know about me. We're not talking about me again. Okay, now, for those of you that are getting out in 4 or 5 years from now, after military commitment, what's the world going to look like if you decide to just get out after your basic commitment, right? Well, I did some research. And unless we go to war with Russia, everything I'm about to say is true. If we go to war with Russia, nothing I'm about to say is true from this point. But I believe that this president and future president will be smart enough not to go to war with Russia. Not that we wouldn't win, that's not the point. But the collateral damage would be horrific. As you can see, the United States in 2023 is still going to be #1 economy, China, Japan. 2024, 25, keep on 26, which would take you through your 5-year commitment. For those of you that are going to be pilots, etc., I didn't go that far out, but I don't think anytime soon are we going to see the United States changing its position from #1. Now, in 2015, when it was rumored that President Trump, then candidate Trump, or then even before candidate Trump, was going to run for president, I said, as only I can say, he was going to transform finance in the world as we know it. It was going to be the greatest transformation of wealth in the history of the planet. And I went on and on and on. And he has. I don't agree with everything the Commander-in-Chief says, especially. But as far as finance, I agree with everything he does. China's been screwing us for practice for 50, 60, 70 years. We put up all the money, and we give them all the service. They give little or nothing back. On those general principles, I agree with the Commander-in-Chief. There's a few other nuances I don't, but I didn't come here to say what I don't agree with the President. And again, full disclosure, I knew him in another lifetime. Now, for the young midshipman, it's a little early to ask you, what would you go back and change? But for you old gits, you losers, you hangers-on, you wusses, I can. And I can see it in your eyes. I coulda. I shoulda. I woulda. we'll give the kids the benefit of the doubt. Now, currently, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, midshipmen, we have the lowest interest rates in the history of the world. I'm going to say it again. The lowest interest rates in the history of the world in the past 5,000 years. They are giving money, literally giving money away free at the banks. If this was a business school, Harvard, Columbia, I'd say, how many financial presentations have you given in the last year? In the last 6 months? In the last 90 days? In the last 30 days? This week? Today? One hand would go up, two hands would go up, three hands would go up. The kids that are graduates of the program, my program, are taught to give 2 to 5 financial presentations a day, not a year or a week. This is a for real sign. Outside Miami, Florida. Even a Navy guy can read that, right?
Right.
Do you have a small business? We have money to lend. That's a major bank. You know how many people, I put this on the internet, I have roughly 100,000 followers. You know how many people called, went to that bank? One. That's why, for you midshipmen, the world will be your goddamn oyster. Because nobody pulls the fucking trigger. One! And it went viral. I'm only talking about the 100,000 people that are on my list. One single solitary human being. I don't even know if it's a human being. I don't know who it is. One person. So then I contact the bank. That's how come I know one. So how possibly serious can you be about being an entrepreneur? How? Well, the guy in Chicago, well, that's too far. Miami, Florida. The guy in Bumfuck, Mississippi, that's too far. The guy in you all got a reason, right? Now I'm going to show you, for those of you, I have a link on my site. The two most famous, in my opinion, most famous links are deal flow, where do you find deals? And the second link is, where do I get the fucking money? That's exactly what it's called. Those 2 links on my site, free. They're the 2 links that are the least clicked on. The least. Some days I get 2 clicks. Some weeks I get 5. Some months I get 20. Why would you come to my site if you don't want to know where the money is? I give a podcast on each, free on the site. This is on the site too. These are the sources. Because you're pretending to want to be an entrepreneur. You're pretending to want to create wealth. You're pretending. You're not serious. Now, angel networks, bartering, factors, general resources mean credit cards, friends, fools and family, government, crowdfunding, commercial banks. This is only scraping the tip of the iceberg. And by the way, this is all detailed on my website. I'm not going to go through every single one of them. But the only one that on this list, and the next list we're going to show, that I haven't personally done myself is crowdfunding. But I have mentees, I have students that have used crowdfunding. Tom Cruise uses crowdfunding to raise money for his movies. Bruce Willis uses crowdfunding to raise money for his movies. I've never personally done it, but my students have. Incubators, investment forums, leasing, minority and women. I'll get back to minorities in a minute. Television, online resources, publications and software, VCs and private equity. Veterans have special dispensation. You're not vets yet. You're going to be vets someday. Veterans have special dispensation with the banks. Most vets only know about two kinds of money. GI Bill for school and buy a house. There's 36 or 38 different programs the Veteran Administration have for vets to help you. Yet, I'm giving the benefit of the doubt to my fellow veterans. It's because they're not educated. They don't know. And the Veteran Administration has been screwed up a lot of years. And they're just, I think them fixing up the hospitals first is probably the right thing to do. I'd fix up the money first, but that's me. Because I know what you can do if you have the money. To the best of my knowledge, I'm the only guy pounding his chest about the various veteran programs. But it's out there, if you're serious. And now my book, Your First 100 Million, is we have a audio, right? Updated version, free on the site. Yeah, because I want you to somehow get across the goal line. The biggest challenge that vets, which are not vets yet, has is they have no money. And even if you stay 20 or 30 years, your pension, you can't support anybody on it. But if somebody tries to teach you, other than my selling the book, then and what you see now is book 1, then book 2, then book 4, then book 6, and I have no books. Everything I have and I've said so far is free. Yeah. The quantum leap is a move that you're prepared to make. You just haven't done it yet. Some of you coming to the Naval Academy, your first quantum leap in life. My hat's off to you. Congratulations. I couldn't get anybody to recommend me to come to the Naval Academy with a gun in the back of their head and threatening to shoot them. I'm jealous. Even though you're Navy, I'm still jealous. You're privileged. Now, worldwide, there are 17.9 million millionaires, up 8% from a total of 16.6 millionaires. Last year, the report defines a millionaire as a household, blah, blah, blah. Most of you have not come from millionaire families. In California, a squatter's got a house worth $1 million. I'm not talking about Mississippi or Alabama. In Los Angeles, houses are outrageously expensive. We had a contest a couple years ago called Smells of Leather, trying to instill you to go out and be more than you can be. Go to a Rolls Royce dealership. Go to a Ferrari dealership. Go to a Bugatti dealership. Go look at a $10 million house, etc., etc., and you take a picture, a selfie in front of the Rolls or at the house. You send it in to me, and the winner would win a free seminar at my castle. I live in a castle, 15th century storybook castle. At that time, I had about 50,000 people on my list. How many do you think, and for those of you that know the answer because you came to the seminar, how many of you think of the 52 or 53,000 people that got the invitation entered the contest? 8! And for a Navy, that's many fingers, Navy guys. 8! Well, how much effort? Even for a plebe. Jeezy, wheezy. 8. No plan survives the first shot. Remember, you were talking about business plans earlier. I heard somebody. You need business plans like you need AIDS. Now, they got that, okay? Even a Navy group understands that. Remember, business plans are nothing more than a wild-ass guess. Because I've never seen in 50 years a business plan fail on paper. And all this information is free on my site. Now, for those of you that are going out into the corporate world, against my advice, this is what you're going to encounter. Instead of the chief executive, you're going to encounter the chief indecision officer, who's got the cagey executive assistant, who his direct reports are the vice president of red tape, the vice president of fear, the vice president of status quo, the vice president of skepticism. The red tape VP has his director of paperwork. The VP of fear has the director of vacillation and the director of hesitation. The VP of status quo has the director of inaction and the director of overthinking. And the VP of skepticism has the director of suspicion and the director of more data. And you wonder why nothing ever gets accomplished. Because nobody knows how to pull the trigger. I have a standard rule of thumb. When I take over businesses, I can fire every third employee. Doesn't matter who they are, man, woman, Chinese, Israeli, every third person I can fire. Every third. From executive VP down to the guy that sweeps the floor. The guys that sweep the floor actually add value. Every third. Sally and I used to be in the turnaround business. Easiest way to turn around a business, fire 60% of everybody. Those are the bottom line. But you can't do that anymore. Because you've got rights. Certain states you can't do that. Certain parts of the world, that's bullshit, you can. Now, I'm not suggesting that you go online and say the old crazy old man says to fire 60%. These are businesses that I buy. I'm not suggesting you do a goddamn thing. Just sit. Again, not for the cadets or the midshipmen. I asked Tom, it didn't dawn on me, why are they called midshipmen? Midship, anyway. It was so obvious once he told me, but I don't know everything. I know a lot more about the Naval Academy than I did, believe me, 5 months ago. Job reports. 250,000 jobs. Unemployment down to 3.7. Labor force participation rate increased 62%. It's the highest employment for blacks, browns, minorities in the history of the fucking planet. But not vets. 22 or 23 vets commit suicide every day. I'm ashamed to say. So all these great numbers, and that's why I believe the president is working so hard to help vets. All these great things have accrued to a lot of people, but not you kids that will be vets someday. By vets, veterans, like myself and a few others in the room. For those of you that live in some of these glorious places, the economies are better and it's easier for you. New York, London, Hong Kong, Singapore, Shanghai, Tokyo, Sydney, blah, 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 blah. Okay. But even if you live in Tupelo, Mississippi, there's opportunities. We had a E6 sergeant attend the last seminar Tupelo is the big town he's near. That's not where he's from some town outside Tupelo. And Tupelo, this is an exaggeration, he's got about this many people in it. That's in the room. But he's from a little town. And he's going to go back and roll up. Well, I forget what he's going to roll up. And but opportunities are abundant. Strategy is a commodity, execution is an art. Again, for the Naval Academy kids, if not as a plebe, but before you get out, they teach you how to execute. Get the job done. QLA is as long as it's moral, ethical, and legal. The ethics and the moral swing in the wind, depending on who you talk to, but the legal is pretty standard. If you come from or you're going to a country that has a rule of law. Not all the countries on the planet have rule of law. Now, these are the 7 steps. Tastes better with a beer. Oh, by the way, Warren Buffett has never had a drop of water to his lips in his whole life. His children say he has never drank water. He lives on cherry cokes and hamburgers. Our commander-in-chief lives on diet cherry cokes and hamburgers. Success leaves clues. Okay? You know why I don't like water? Fish fucking it. As you do here at the Naval Academy, you're creating your own personal foundation. You had a vision. Some of you had a vision before you came here that you wanted to go to the Naval Academy. Okay? I don't think, well, perhaps you thought you had a vision to go into another academy, but you're at the Naval Academy. I don't know that part, but you're here. You had a vision. Your vision was clarified. You had to build the perception. Not all of you. Some of you went to the prep school. Some of you may have been in the an enlisted man first, as was Tom, who got up and talked to you. But you all had a dream, okay? Our program, you create a dream team. Your dream team at the Naval Academy are your fellow midshipmen and soon to be your fellow officers when you get out. We do similar. We build a dream team. We start with a old git, maybe 60 to 70 years old, not always a veteran or not always but you're picking someone that he is or she is where you want to be 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. For those of you that want to be admirals, you got an admiral that's, if it's not Nimitz, probably too old for you to relate to, but more some of the modern day admirals. We have growth, action plan, financing, internal growth, acquisitions. My favorite is acquisitions. It's easier to buy revenue than it is to create it. For those of you that have ever started a business from ground zero, $1 to $5,000 is geometric growth. $1 to $100,000 in revenue is geometric growth. $1 to $1 million in revenue is geometric growth. Then what happens to you? You stop playing to win and you start playing not to lose. Like an Army-Navy game. You're up 18-6 at halftime. You lose momentum. The game ties at 18-18 by the end of the fourth quarter and you lose in overtime. Because you stop playing to win the second half and you start playing not to lose. It's the same in business. Because you start worrying about the few pennies that you made and you start to sit on them like a mother hen. Most of the men and women in this room that have been in business stopped playing to win long ago. And they started playing not to lose. And my system is pay yourself, your directors, your employees first. In other words, taking money out legally for every transaction. 95% of all businesses go up for sale worldwide. It's a worldwide number. Gallup poll. 95% of all businesses worldwide don't sell. Why? Because the seller's trying to get rich off one transaction. He's trying to build his wealth off one deal. He worked 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and now he's trying to get wealthy. Wealth is built on a series of transactions, not one. 95% of all businesses don't sell because they're asking outrageously high price for it because they didn't get rich all the way up. This system that has created billions, tens of billions, the largest deal in recorded history, from teenage phenom multimillionaires to the largest deal on the planet, $500 billion, is built on taking money out every time you do a transaction. And this system is realize means sell, and either through an IPO or a strategic sale to a big company, and so you're cashing out. And that's how we've done it since I've been coaching 25 years, and that's how Amazon's doing it, and that's how Google is doing it, and that's how Microsoft is doing it, and that's how and I could go on and on and on and name many more companies. Okay? Now, Q&A, right? Okay. We're going to open it up to Q&A, and there is such a thing as a stupid question. But I do have a tender spot for the midshipmen because they're going to be officers and gentlemen down the road. So I might tolerate a moron question or two, but not too many. Open it up to Q&A, guys and gals, boys and girls.
Could you go into more detail
About what?
about the paying yourself and directors' employees first and in the deal?
Okay, you and I, you bought a transaction. You bought a company for $1 million. You financed 100% of it commercially, which the site tells you how to do it, and you overfinance it for $100,000. So you borrowed $1,100,000 to buy $1 million business, and you take the $100,000 and you split it up between your team. You take $20,000. You don't take. You pay yourself $20,000. You pay all the other members of your team. Like the senior will pay himself $20,000, and then the third year guy will get $15,000, and the second year guy will get $5,000, and the plebe will give a McDonald's hamburger. The seniors in the back all shake their head. They like that. That's what I mean by pay yourself. But every transaction you do. Yes, sir.
Earlier, I asked you before the show about starting now versus going to the thing in April, but and you said to wait until April. I just wanted to clarify on that because in your Peña-isms, it says to successful people do it bad until they.
Okay, well then why ask me the question if you've got all the answers?
I was just making sure that.
No, I told you what I told you.
All right, I was just.
Okay, well fine. Well, okay, well, I already told you.
All
okay.
Back up together. How you doing, sir? Thank you for showing up and coming out here. I read about the Boston University not wanting to have you speak there. I think that's a travesty. This speak has been great for me. I just have one question for you, sir.
Okay, I'm listening.
So, what's your process for evaluating acquisition of companies? Do you
cash flow, free unencumbered cash flow has to absolutely cover debt service. If your payments are $10,000 a month to the bank, your free cash flow has to be at least $10,000 a month to pay the debt service. But the benchmark of the acquisition program is a motivated seller. Now, I'm teased in the industry. This is a slight exaggeration, but a motivated seller to Dan is the woman just had a stroke. She's in a wheelchair. And the husband is spitting up blood from emphysema. He's going to die in 3 weeks. Now, that's a motivated seller. That's a slight exaggeration, but not much of one. So the first thing is a motivated seller. The second is debt service has to be covered by free cash flow. Cash flow meaning the company, the business that you're buying is producing the cash flow.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Mr. Peña. My name is Davia Dice. When you are starting out and you don't have a track record, you recommend going into a partnership with a larger company?
Track record, when you build a dream team, number 4, your dream team is going to have 100, 150 years of experience. For example, your CFO, your CEO, your chairman, your industry experts, your in-house lawyer, your in-house accountant are all going to have between 20 and 30, 35 years of experience. So you add all those up, and you instantly have 150 years experience. The second method, which can be done in conjunction with what I just described, is you joint venture with IBM, you joint venture with Ford Motor Company, you joint venture with Procter & Gamble. Joint venture meaning you go into business with them and you're leveraging off of their track record.
What gets them excited to want to work with you?
Well, I mean, first of all, they hear all the pitches. I've heard, I have 3 million pores in my body. I've been fucked in every one twice, at least, in a bad way. So all these big companies have heard all the stories, all the sob stories. I'm a black woman, but a single mother. They've heard all that crap. You have to have a unique selling proposition, USP, that makes you different, that differentiates you. And again, the vets to be, the midshipmen, there's a lot of people that want to be in business with veterans, that they're not yet, but they will be someday. Except for the 5-star admirals that are just going to hang on forever. Other than the 5-star admirals, you're going to be a vet someday. So you have to have some idea. Black women, brown women, Chinese women, etc., have special rights, is not the right word, but you have special dispensations in the lending world. There are pools of money for women. There are pools of money for black women. There are pools, if you're Muslim, black Muslim women. I think that's wrong, but it happens to be the way it is. So, I mean, there's no reason why you shouldn't take advantage of it.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Jim Williams. We spoke earlier.
Yep.
And I wanted to know, with regard to financing of the deals,
Yep.
which one are most likely to occur? The seller financing, the bank financing, or any other equity raising vehicle?
Well, no, we don't. We primarily use debt financing. I mean, we're not looking for people's equity. You brought up seller financing, which I didn't mention, but seller financing, meaning the motivated seller. Let's say that the business that he's selling doesn't have enough cash flow, free cash flow to cover debt service. How much cash flow does he have? Well, let's say, just say that it's for 50% of the business. Then fine, Mr. Jones, I can buy your company for this much. 50% will be financed by a commercial bank. 50% you'll have to take the note back. In other words, seller financing. Now, they've been doing no money down house sales for 50, 60 years. No money down. You see it on television, right? No money down. This is no money down business purchases. The concept is exactly 100% the same, except for buying a house. Instead of buying a house, you're buying a business.
Very good. And a second question, if I may.
Sure.
With regard to your dealings with the local municipality and butting heads, what's your best means of negotiating that tough nut? The local political establishment.
We frame it. Are you suggesting that politics plays a part in buying businesses?
Well, I'm suggesting that most businesses that pose a threat to the political system are deterred. And when that occurs, how does one address it?
Well, I mean, there's 10 million businesses for sale in the United States currently. Next.
Very well.
Let's
Thank
go
you.
next. Okay.
Good evening, Ms. Peña. My question for you is, you teach us that high performance is, well, self-esteem.
Correct.
Is a foundation.
Self-esteem is at the core of being a high-performance person.
Yes. So my question for you is, in your experience and wisdom, what would be the best habits or practices to continue developing and building your self-esteem, especially?
Show me your friends and I'll show you your future. Okay? You're the average of the 5 people that you hang with the most, that you chill with. In your case, they're midshipmen, right? Now, I'm sure there's all midshipmen are great midshipmen, but there's some that are better and some that are worse. That's life. And so first of all, Bill Gates doesn't hang. Warren Buffett doesn't chill. Jeff doesn't hang. Steve didn't hang. Dan doesn't chill. Only losers hang. Only fucking losers chill. Show me your friends and I'll show you your future. You have to disassociate yourself with whomever that you're part of. Olympians congregate with fellow Olympians. World-class athletes congregate with world-class athletes. And in most cases, boys and girls, your family is the biggest fucking detriment you have on your neck as an albatross. Did I answer your question?
Very much.
Okay.
Hello, second question. When you are going in for bank loans, at what point does the bank look at your business credit and not your personal credit?
Well, if you got an existing business, they're going to look at your past history. So if you've got a business that's made no money and is behind and is about to default on a loan, that's not going to happen. Well, that's why it's easier to buy revenue than create it. It's easier to go out and find a business to buy. Most of you in this room ought to turn the key on your business. Understand? Turn the key. Shut it down. Close the door. Because all you've done is bought yourself a job. A poor paying job at that.
I have a question about the dream team.
Sure.
So, do you assemble that dream team of people before you have an idea of what your business is going to be? Or do you have the idea and then custom?
No. Okay. I've been telling Rick Scott, who is now a senator-elect of Florida, who was governor of Florida, who used to be my lawyer, a transaction lawyer, built the largest healthcare company in the history of the world, Columbia Healthcare. He doesn't like this story. Well, I believe he's going to be the president of the United States someday. 3.5 Bloody Marys later, he says, Dan, where should I go? I said, healthcare, telco, which is now internet telco. He picked healthcare. You picked healthcare, let's say, or you picked cybersecurity, let's say, whatever you pick. Then you build a dream team around that idea. And the idea will morph. You may wind up thinking you want to buy hospitals, and you're going to wind up doing assisted living. Or you might start with assisted living and wind up buying hospitals. So, but healthcare in general is where the dream team has to have its expertise. With transactions, and you want a dream team that's done 100, 150, 200 transactions, that have done, at least $5 or $10 billion in deals. And your credibility will accrue based on that. Most of the kids that do my program have accomplished little or nothing. Like Josh Kim, the phenom teenage multimillionaire. His claim to fame, and I'm not demeaning this, he was an Eagle Scout. An Eagle Scout, homeschooled. And we had dinner with his family last night. His 9 brothers and sisters. And his dad, he's got a West Point father. And he's got a child psychologist mother. And his claim to fame was being an Eagle Scout. And he picked healthcare. And he built his dream team around that healthcare. I have nothing, I'm not his chairman, I have no dog in the hunt. I'm not financially connected to Josh in any way, shape, manner, or form. And he's just one example. So, did I answer your question?
Yes, you did.
Thank you.
Can I ask another one?
Sure.
Okay. So when you have, let's say, if you have this analogy you've said about Bo Derek, you see something that's hot. This is something that I definitely want to get
Correct.
into.
I don't fart like you would bring up the Bo Derek story. These kids they don't even know who Bo Derek is. But go ahead.
So what if you have more than one idea? How do you?
No.
What's your vetting process to focus on?
Clausewitz, the famous Prussian general, said about 150 years ago, focus on the few, not the many. Hitler couldn't fight 2 wars on 2 different fronts. Napoleon couldn't fight 2 wars on 2 different fronts. And you can't fight 2 wars on 2 different fronts. Focus on the few, not the many. One thing at a time. Another way of looking at it, there was an old bull and a young bull up on the hill. There's 20 or 30 cows down there, ripe for the picking. The young bull says, well, let's go down and have sex with all of them, one of them, or 2 of them. And the old bull says, let's walk down the hill and take them one at a time. One at a time. Most people are involved in too many things. Vis-a-vis businesses. One at a time. Okay?
Thank you.
Yes, young man.
Hi, Dan. Thank you. I'm involved in a cybersecurity startup, and there are 2 partners, and one's completely dysfunctional. So
Are you the stuff functional one?
No, I'm like second in command. We're trying to do a hostile takeover. So I'm trying to help figure out the situation, maybe trying to sell the business. As a motivated seller, do you have any tips for best avenues to go through?
You mean you being the motivated seller?
Yes.
You sell out to your 2 partners?
Yeah, me and the partner would take it over and try to just sell the business.
Well, I mean, unless you have a push-pull agreement, in other words, unless you have some method of evaluating the business, it's very difficult for partners to split up a business because everybody's got their own idea of what it's worth. And again, this is on the site. I mean, the business should have been set up with a push-pull agreement. Push-pull means that there was a method of evaluating the business. So if we ever go sideways or we don't love one another, well, that'll never happen. We're going to love each other forever. Yeah, well, if we don't love one another, there's a basis that we can evaluate the business, and then either you buy me or I buy you. If you don't have that in place, nothing's impossible, but it's very, very difficult to come up with a valuation because somebody will consider themselves the winner and somebody will consider themselves a loser in any buy-sell agreement.
There's no way to put that agreement in.
Now you can put it in, sure. But he's going to get a lawyer, you're going to get a lawyer. Okay? Mm-hmm. It's like a divorce. And I don't wish that on anybody. Well, a couple people I wish on, but not in this room anyway. Okay.
Thank you.
You have a young man running down here. Don't get winded, old timer. Have one of the plebes help you.
Good evening, everybody. Mr. Peña, thank you for hosting this event. My question is in regards to paying the dream team. What is the best way to approach that?
Well, you recruit the dream team not for money, not for equity, but for their time experience. And you will pay them as you do transactions because you have no money. This system is built starting with zero money, which affects most of you in this room. That's how I can describe you. You're much closer to zero money than having any money, okay? So you're going to pay them out of the transactions. As you do one acquisition, you will pay pay the directors, everybody. You'll take money out, you'll pay them money. Then when you get to be a reasonably sized company, then you pay salaries, then you pay honorariums to board directors. But what you want the board, when you're recruiting the board, you want them to say, I'm interested, if I can add value, subject to conflicts. And that's what a professional would comment. Not how much you're going to pay me. If they ask you how much you're going to pay, next. Thank you very much for your time. Don't let the door hit you in the fat ass on the way out. Now, I wouldn't recommend you say that, but that's what I say. Whether they're fat or not. Whether they're man, woman, or beast. Don't let the door hit you in the fat ass on the way out. I know it's a Navy group. I know your eyes are wandering around like as you walk out the door, don't let the door hit you in the fat, that means get the fuck out of the room. That's what that means. Navy's got to explain a little more than Navy guys.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So real quick, if you have other obligations you need to go to or get back for study period, you're welcome to leave, and we'll continue Q&A.
Yes, sir.
So, what if you have a dream team already and then you want to...
Thank you for your service, guys and gals.
Yes. So, what do you have the dream team already and then you're trying to get a more government contract? What would be the best, I would say, a better approach to get a government contract? Because sometimes you have
Well, you have to bid on the government contracts. There's 1 million contracts on the government website daily. 1 million daily. You have to bid on the contracts. And the best way to get a government contract is to joint venture with somebody that's already had a government contract, so they're your partner. So you get the contract, and then you subcontract it to the person that's got the contract, or has the experience, I should say. Okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, the gentleman behind you.
Again. So underneath all of this is a 24-hour period. Well, my question is,
what do you mean underneath all?
Well, so
we only have 24 hours in a day. That's
absolutely.
I got you.
Yeah, absolutely. So from sun up to sundown, when it, shut my eyes, open up, what should the day of someone who's executing...
This is based on the minimum 80-hour work week. Minimum. At Amazon, to keep your job, you work 80 hours a week. To be considered for promotion, 85 hours a week. To get promoted, 90 to 100 hours a week. This isn't any slappy happy 40-hour work week. And I recommend that you all exercise, except for a couple of pretty close to a heart attack. I don't recommend you exercise. But everybody else, other than the fat tubs of shit in the room, exercise, because you're never going to be able to do this 80 hours a week in the kind of shape, except for the midshipmen, which Tom tells me they're in shape. Is that right, Tom?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Other than the midshipmen, I mean, exercise, and I mean, I still work 60, 70 hours a week, and I haven't had to work in 35 years. 60, 70 hours a week.
So inside of that 80 hours, how do you break up your day?
The gym at least once a day, probably twice a day. 2 meals a day, not 3 meals a day. 3 or 4 hours of answering emails. 3 or 4 hours looking at transactions. 3 or 4 hours of interfacing, doing due diligence on other deals. But I mean, it's an 80-hour work week. I mean, minimum. Josh Kim, the teenage phenom, worked 120 hours a week. And he's 21 now, flying around in a goddamn jet plane. How much, for the midshipmen? You put in long days, right? And again, I'm not trying to infringe upon your commitment. Believe me, I'm the last person to do that. But just imagine if you were putting on the same hours and you were making $1 million a month, $1 million a week. Remember the light bulb that went off over my head? Yeah. Danny, a young boy like you, could get rich in the civilian world. I still get chills thinking about that. And I was so sorry he didn't get his 4th star. For that advice, he should have got a goddamn 4 star. He only got 3 stars. And General Atterbury, the ones only got 2 stars. And they said in their later life, you know what kept me from a 3rd star and a 4th star? Danny Peña. That boy was a sorry excuse for an officer in this man's army. They used to tease me. That was the best thing ever happened to those 2 old farts. Yeah.
Yeah, so all those things, and then I know you talked about affirmations. And,
yes, sir.
Practicing success on a daily basis.
Correct. Go to the Rolls dealer, go to the Ferrari dealer, go to the $10 million house. I mean, this campus, I was in awe walking around. I mean, you guys are privileged, the guys that are here. You don't appreciate it. Tom comes back and gets nostalgic after being gone 10, 12 years. I mean, you have it here. You have it here. And all the guys that are, not all, but many of the people that are listed on your famous alumni also got super rich. Staubach, Ross Perot. Yet on the website, it doesn't say a damn thing about their billionaires. I'm not taking anything away from Rogers' ability to throw a ball and the Dallas Cowboys and all that. But you are who you hang around with. And most of the people hang with people. An analogy, if you go to sports bars, and I know the midshipmen, at least a period of their life here, you can't drink and fool around, but if you go to sports bars and you're farting and belching with your mates, 20 years from now, you're going to be farting and belching with your mates at sports bars. Of course, I know the Navy guys are beyond that. I could own all the Navy guys here to give them, a truckload of beer. Sounds pretty good, doesn't it? Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks.
Hi, Dan. Boards put together.
Yep.
Tens of billions of experience. It's my board.
Great, good.
Been on the acquisition hunt for several months now. And although I'm confident...
And it is a hunt, kids. It's a hunt. You know, like the hunt for Red October, with that movie with Sean Connery, It is a hunt. because you're looking for motivated sellers. Okay, go ahead.
Had some deals that didn't materialize, and I'm confident we can get a deal done, by the spring. But we may approach that point where, because I didn't raise any money for salaries or anything of that nature, and I'm wondering, maybe
They're running out of gas.
Yeah, correct.
You got the wrong guys. No. I know exactly what you're saying.
Okay.
Either your leadership skills suck, which looking at you, they probably do. Your communication skills suck, and I hope you don't stutter when you talk to them. And people always underestimate how long it's going to take. And now you run toward the end. They think they should have already been across the goal line. You've had a couple of false starts.
The goal was third, fourth quarter, so we haven't.
Okay, well, I mean, they say that. That's political correctness. They want it to be the third or fourth week. That's the truth. They lie. The situation that you're describing, I've seen it 10,000 times. The dream team that you start with isn't necessarily the dream team you finish with. Josh Kim has had 3 chairmen, 2 CEOs, 2 CFOs from 17 to 21. But he's the one in the jet plane.
So my board, although it's world class, it's dispensable. I'm not that concerned with having to swap out some board members. But my CFO, I'm wondering if we get too far down, would you ever advise that I put together 50, 100 grand?
No.
No. Okay.
If you got to pay them now, they're whores. But see, you can't say that, kid. I can. You know how many people I've called board members whores? You filthy fucking whore. Get the fuck out. Don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out. I say it so easy because I've said it a million times. Because you still care what these assholes think of you. You still want to be liked. And some people in this room are pleasers. Your mother was a pleaser. Your father was a pleaser. And look what they produced. Losers, pleasers. Except for the seniors, the soon-to-be pilots. I feel safer already knowing that I'm in the presence of 2 future pilots. We used to fight communism from our doorstep back 50 years ago. But that's another story. That's another seminar. Yeah, go ahead.
Answer. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Mr. Peña,
yes, sir.
A couple questions. Usually get up early in the morning. I'm working on some international business and running some castings for the transportation market.
Mm-hmm.
Challenges I'm faced with, the financial investment is going to be from a factoring company and then also roughly a $500,000 investment. The factoring company is basing it on total volume per month. The rate is between 2% on the high side down to 1.38 per transaction, payable obviously by the end of business day.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the situations I'm in is I'm trying to go ahead and amortize my freight across the United States, Canada, and also Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to figure out, I don't know how to negotiate my freight rates on container loads coming inbound. They vary all over the place. I have no idea how to go about negotiate ocean freight.
Well, you need somebody on your team that does. And that's why on your dream team, you've got 2, if you follow this methodology, 2 industry experts, an in-house counsel, an in-house accountant who's not your CFO, your CEO, and your chairman, all of which have infinitely more experience than you do. This is built on a team effort. And when I had the pleasure of being with the Onassis people who did container shipping, etc., they had 25 or 30 guys and gals, mostly guys in those days, that were experiencing that. But you need more experience. There are people that know how to do that. I'm not surprised that you may have trouble figuring it out, but there are people. And I don't mean by going hiring a consultant. That's not what I mean. I mean in-house. Hey, Joe. Hey, Sal. What's the best way to do this?
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, sir.
So I'm currently in private banking and trading, but my question is not necessarily specific to my industry. But in my industry, there's a learning curve, whether it's learning from older traders, private wealth managers, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
How do you know at what point you're ready to leave and start your own company?
There's no easy time to make a hard decision. It's like getting rid of your wife or your husband. Not an easy decision, is it? There's never a right time. I can't tell you the right time. It's going to be hard. It's like, for those of you that are still the Navy kids around, okay, you got passed over once for captain. Do I stay for a second time? My opinion would be no. Because it's 50-50 you're going to get passed over a second time. The object is to have your career that you're not passed over a first time. Getting back to your example, there isn't never a right time. And you just have to pull the trigger.
Thank you.
Wonder if you can share some of your most valuable mistakes, lessons learned.
Oh fuck! I could write a book. I could write volumes of books. I mean, when Churchill wrote his memoirs, with 8 or 10 volumes, they were mostly the things that, of course, he who writes the history, he was writing his own history because he wanted to be thought of favorably, Mr. Churchill. And the biggest thing I learned is focus on the few, not the many. You are who you hang around with. And I've always been attracted to super high performance, mega successful, mega wealthy people. I've been partners with the Hunt brothers, the Onassis people, to name just a couple. And I didn't understand why I was a kid from the barrio who got in a lot of trouble. And my dad was a world-class athlete, not one sport, not 2 sports, but 3 fucking sports. He was an All-American. And I could barely chew gum and brush my teeth at the same time. I have peripheral neuropathy, meaning the nerve endings of my feet and my fingers were dead. So I couldn't catch a ball. And my dad is doing all this All-American stuff. So I forced myself to do something that he didn't do. And that was create generational wealth. But I've always been attracted to the best. And even when I was a young guy. And starting out with that, Danny, a young kid like you, should be able to make a lot of money. But most of you, not just this small group, but the kids that I talk to, have not been programmed for success. Your parents weren't successful. Or if they were, and I'm not saying your dad's a cop, your mom's a teacher, those are honorable professions, but not for creating wealth. Andrew Agassi and Steffi Graf, both world-class athletes, tennis players. They have 3 children, I think. It will be hard for them to raise kids that are high-performance athletes. Not impossible, but very difficult. You're not in that case. You're not, And for those of you that have been raised by a single mom, I mean, you got all kind of reasons why. And we've all got reasons why not to be more successful. And remember the money tree. Money's dirty. Money's this. Money's that. And that's most of us come from those households. And it's because our households had no money. We had no money. And so it's, but reading books and listening to podcasts and, I mean, that's not how you get it done, guys and gals. The way you get it done is pull the goddamn trigger. Taking action, or as I say, I took Nike, just do it, just fucking do it. I mean, you got to take action. And most of you are afraid of what other people will think. You don't want to embarrass yourself. I can go on and on. You all know it's true. Jesus. Whereas our daughter would say, Jeezy Weezy. And when she went to the seminar 20 years ago, when she was 12 years old, she says, gee, Daddy, this is easy peasy. Intellectually, it is. But when you have to make a decision, like the guy about his board, firing his board, that's not easy. It's like getting rid of your wife or your husband. Not easy, is it? Are you frowning like it is easy in the back room there? It's not easy, guys and gals. Now, I went 20 years never saying gal, but now I'm being more politically correct because there's women in the audience. So I had gal. It's not in my heart, though. All I see is men faces out there. Not because the women aren't attractive, it's just, I don't see color either. I see your beard, though. I mean, it'd be hard to get rich in my world. And you only have 2 times to make a first impression. 1, the way you look. 2, when you open your big fucking mouth. That's it. You have 2 times to make a first impression. How you look and when you open your mouth. That's it. You're going to live or die with that right there. There are no second chances. There aren't any. On that happy note, unless there's any other questions? Yes, sir. Oh, yes, ma'am. Excuse me.
Hi, no problem. Do you provide scholarships for your QLA?
To vets and students, yes. Partial, not full. Partial. To vets and students, yes. She asked me to do scholarships, so we don't call it scholarships. What do we call it, Sally?
Discount.
Pardon? Discount, yeah. Yes, we do. To students. And we have active duty. I'm not suggesting any of the midshipmen, but we do have active duty in all of the services except for Coast Guard. I don't know. I was just thinking about that, getting ready for the seminar. We've never had an active duty Coast Guard kid. But, yeah, correct. Anything else? Guys, gals, thank you very much. It's been an honor and privilege. Some will be graduating this coming June, but most will be on for 2 or 3 more years. The world is their oyster, and I'm going to show them how to take the oysters home forever.